Hello fellow audio nerds, I'm Steph, and this is Major Hi-Fi. This week's video, I'm sort of switching things up a little bit. Some of you have asked for shorter videos, so I'm sort of experimenting with that today. So this week I got a chance to spend some quality time with the Audeze LCD-i3. It looks just like this, and it's a really cool little in-ear headphone. It sits right between the LCD-i4, which is Audeze's flagship in-ear headphone, and the iSign series, which sits a little bit below this one in price. So what can you expect from this one? Well, let's take a closer look with this Audeze LCD-i3 review. Oh, hey, Steph here. Before getting started into the review, I just want to say a quick thing. If you like this review and you find it really helpful, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe to the channel. We definitely want to try and grow a little bit, so definitely want to hear your feedback as well. So let us know what you think in the comments down below. Alright, thanks. I'll see you in the review. Now, the driver housing of the LCD-i3 is actually the same sort of magnesium driver housing as the LCD-i4. It just looks super dapper, really classy, and when I was holding it in my hands, it felt really strong and durable too. Now, clearly, compared to other IEMs, the driver housings on these are pretty large. For my ears personally, now I have pretty small ears. These did not fit super well for me. I definitely had to, it took a solid amount of time to get like a proper seal that would stay in place. But I think that if you have ears that are even like a little bit bigger than mine, you'll have much better luck, and especially with the fins, because I could feel that the fins would really make it feel secure, but it was just, they were a little bit too big and they only come in one size. Now, the drivers inside here are super efficient planar magnetics, and it utilizes a few of the technologies from Audeze that you might be familiar with if you're familiar with Audeze at all, the Uniforce ultra-thin diaphragm and the Fluxor sort of magnet array. They say up to 130 dB, please don't listen that loudly for the sake of your precious ears, but it can deliver that amount of sound without any distortion at all. Now, these IEMs actually come with 3 different cables in the box. All of them connect to the in-ear headphones at the base via a 2-pin connector. Now, the first cable is kind of your standard cable. It connects to, terminates to a 3.5 millimeter connection. The next one is a lightning connection, and this utilizes Audeze Cipher technology, their proprietary DSP. And lastly, it comes with a Bluetooth cable. So this one has 8 hours of battery life, also uses Audeze Cipher technology, has a microphone and remote, and it converts, and it supports aptX, aptX HD, and Bluetooth 5. Now let's get into the sound profile of these in-ear headphones. Now, the LCD-i3, the low frequencies have a super wonderful sense of extension. I felt a little bit of a boost around what sounded like 40 hertz, and this just gave this really nice kind of like expressiveness to kick drums, bass synths. It also did a good job of maintaining separation and differentiation from other areas of the low frequencies and the low mids. So for example, I was listening to the song I'm Callin' by Tennis, and the kick drum felt punchy, it felt super full, and it really had that nice kind of feeling of extension to it. And that really helped to separate it from the bass guitar, which is playing a really similar rhythmic pattern. Now, the middle frequencies of the LCD-i3 had a great feeling of harmonic complexity and of presence and of detail and really nice separation as well. There was a little bit of a boost in the low mids, which just kind of added this sense of weight to bass guitars, pianos, organs. Also really like worked well with a boost in the high mids around what sounded like 3K. But also there was a boost at what sounded like 1K, and this kind of added extra thwack to snare drums. It sort of brought forward kind of just like attacks in general of acoustic guitars and that kind of thing. However, these boosts in the high mids were sort of balanced back out by some cuts in the high mids, so I noticed it around 2K, around 4 and 5K, a little bit of a cut. The earphones really had a nice feeling of presence and detail up there in the high mids. However, it didn't really throw off the balance level-wise. For example, when I was listening to the song Carolina in My Mind, I found this really nice sense of clarity with the acoustic guitar attacks as well as the snare drum. They really worked well together. Additionally, the bass guitar felt really nice and fat. It had carried a lot of weight. That combined with the sense that there's really nice separation there just made these very emotionally impactful, because you could hear all of this detail, but it's not throwing off the levels of things in the mix, so it really kind of feels like it's doing what the mixer intended it to do. The high frequencies of the LCD-i3 had presence and lift. I noticed a boost around what sounded like 6K in the lower treble, which really kind of helped to bring forward the attacks on cymbals. It brought forward the attacks on drums, and also the consonants and vocals, so it had this really nice sense of articulation. That boost was followed then by a cut around what sounded like 8 kilohertz. It really seemed like these were able to maintain harmonic complexity in the high frequencies, but it did soften the feeling of texture a little bit. But then finally, there was another boost in the upper octave around what sounded like 11 or 12K, and this really just added this nice sense of lift to everything and actually created a nice feeling of extension in the high frequencies. You could hear kind of the breath. It's kind of both a feeling of lift and like an audible sense of air. For example, when I was listening to the song Fever by Ray Charles featuring Natalie Cole, the finger snaps, the hand drums, the cymbals, and the voices in general really had a feeling of clarity, of distinction, and of articulation. The snare brushes that kind of go on during the song felt a little bit softened in the mix actually, and kind of made that texture feel a little bit less present. The cymbal flares, the voices sounded absolutely gorgeous and just had this really nice feeling of audible air. You could hear that breath, and also this feeling of lift too. So just kind of that overall sense of extension that kind of applies itself to the whole mix, but makes it really pretty. Finally, as for the soundstage of the Audeze LCD-i3, the sense of height was really nice and tall. The feeling of extension in the low end combined with that feeling of extension in the high end I described just made it super nuanced, but also have this feeling of just like length and extension and liveliness. The sense of depth had a lot of really great nuance to it. It had great contrast, and I loved the way that the high-mid sort of a really stellar sense of depth, because you have all the nice presence, yet it doesn't feel so intimate that it's like kind of throwing off the balance of the depth. Then finally, as for the sense of width, the phantom center was really strong, but it still kind of left room for movement on the edges. There's a little bit more subtlety to that feeling of width than the other dimensions, but it was still very well done and still had a good sense of nuance. So for example, when I was listening to the song 1919 by Terry Lynn Carrington, the piano hammers have this really nice kind of feeling of intimacy, and it contrasted really well and in an appropriate way from the further off bass, upright bass. Next, the cymbals, the snare brushes had this beautiful feeling of extension that really kind of shot them up above the head. And then finally, as for the feeling of width, the piano in the song is recorded in stereo, so the left hand is panned to the left, the right hand is panned to the right, so as the notes get higher, it sort of moves further to the right. Now, in this song, you could really hear the difference in the specific placement of all the notes, but it just felt a little bit closer in than, you know, in comparison to the way the height felt super extended and the depth had that kind of like more extended kind of feel. Overall, the Audeze LCD-i3 had a very exciting sound with lots of presence, clarity, and detail. It also maintained a feeling of thickness and harmonic complexity, so I think it's going to be a great option for those of you who want that kind of a naturalness to the sound that also has a lot of detail to it. Really nice extension in the height especially, which was my favorite part of it, and I think it worked well for a wide variety of genres. Thank you so much for watching. For another perspective on the Audeze LCD-i3, you can check out the link down below to my colleague's review of the same in-ear headphones. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and for more videos like this, be sure to subscribe. Alright, I will see you next time. Bye.